Hi guys, David O'Sullivan here, and in this video I'm very excited to bring to you a special collaboration with none other than Sean Chandler himself from Sean Chandler Talks About. And in this video we're going to give you our picks for the top 10 best Marvel movie moments of all time. That's right, to mark the release of the upcoming and highly anticipated Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, we thought it'd be a good idea to look back on the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe up until this point and give you our picks for the top 10 best Marvel movie moments. Now before I explain more about how we're going to go about doing this, Sean, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hey, I'm Sean Chandler from Sean Chandler Talks About. I like to talk about movies, a few TV shows, do movie reviews, talk about movie news, trailer reactions, and I got a cool thing called Masters of Movie Trivia that is essentially a movie trivia competition for YouTube movie reviewers. So I like to talk movies, and if you join me over there, I would love to talk movies with you.
Thanks very much for joining me again, Sean, in this collaboration. And before we get into our individual top 10s, the way we're going to do this is that we're going to go back and forth between me and Sean. I'm going to do my 10 to 8, Sean will do his 10 to 8, I'll do my 7 to 5, Sean will do his 7 to 5, etc, etc. But first I thought we'd do some honourable mentions, and some quick honourable mentions that I have, some scenes that I really like but I just didn't have room for them on my list. The highway battle from Captain America the Winter Soldier I think is an incredible action sequence, but I already had a couple of scenes from the Winter Soldier already, so I had to cut that. The plane rescue scene from Iron Man 3, the mountaintop battle, the fight between Iron Man and Thor in the Avengers, the party scene from Age of Ultron, lifting Thor's hammer, and then also Iron Man versus terrorists in the first Iron Man film. So I had lots of scenes and moments that I really liked, but I just didn't have enough room to fit them all onto my top 10. What about you, Sean? Do you have any honourable mentions?
Yeah, I got 5 honorable mentions. I got Iron Man 3, the plane rescue, where there's the fake Iron Man suits, people falling out, and he's trying to get everybody to the ground. From Age of Ultron, the Hulk versus Hulkbuster fight. Just, one of those kind of dream come trues that, we never thought we would get, and then we got it. One you mentioned, Iron Man from fighting the terrorist in Iron Man. Just a very cool sequence, especially when it first came out, being like, wow, this is really happening. Like, this is so much more enjoyable than I thought it would be. Wow, this is awesome. Another one, Doctor Strange, the Dormammu's time loop at the end, where you kind of get to the climax of a comic book movie, and it was just such a new, fun, interesting twist on how to have just like working with the rules of their film and just doing something different. And then one I picked, kind of not specifically, but in the first Thor movie, just the fish out of water comedy where he's like, wench, bring me another. All that stuff just was so fun and an interesting take on things that they could bring into the Marvel movie. So those are my 5 honorable mentions.
Yeah, it's like, we only have cats or dogs, and give me one of those large enough to ride. It's like, yeah, it's like there's lots of great moments from Doctor Strange, Captain America, Age of Ultron. There were so many kind of better scenes or so many better films that I like, so I couldn't include any of those on my list. But, right, so let's just kick this off now, and I'll just quickly do my 10 through 8. And also, since last time we talked, I kind of added a couple of scenes onto my list on the 10 and 9 slot. So first up at number 10, I have the prison escape scene from Guardians of the Galaxy. Is that scene on your list?
It is not on my list. Great scene, though. I could put that whole movie as my whole list, basically, so I just had to pick which ones I was going to go with.
Yeah, there's so many. You could just do a top 10 just for Guardians of the Galaxy. But I decided to pick the prison escape scene as like the kind of one of the best action scenes in the film, because it's the first time we see all the Guardians come together and work together as a team, and it's just a really cool kind of real great action set piece where they kind of escape in that pod. And we just, have the back and forth with them all working together. And of course, that really great moment with Groot, fighting off the security guards and Rocket on his back shooting the machine gun. So I thought that was really great. I remember when I first heard about Guardians of the Galaxy, I looked up Rocket Raccoon. I was like, raccoon with a machine gun on the back of a tree. I was like, I'm in. And then as soon as we saw that in the trailer, I was like, yes. So yeah, there was just so much great stuff in that scene. I thought it was one of the best kind of action set pieces in the film. So I got the prison escape scene from Guardians of the Galaxy at my number 10. Coming in at number 9, I've got another action scene from the first Iron Man, and I decided to put the cave escape scene from Iron Man. And the reason I put that scene on there is because obviously that's the first time we actually see him in the suit, see him kind of reborn as Iron Man. And again, it's another great action scene with him breaking out of the kind of his confinement there and taking down the terrorists. But as well as being a really cool action scene, it's also got kind of a quite emotional, kind of dramatic kind of undercurrent to it with the whole Jensen arc.
And it's funny. It's like, it's action,
right?
It's heartfelt, and it has these little funny moments in it, and it all works.
Yeah, there's like that funny moment where he goes to shoot Iron Man, and it just repels back and kills himself. But like I said, as well as being a really cool action scene, it gets quite emotional there with Jensen sacrifices himself to save Tony, because Tony's, he's a bit of a dick. He's not really a nice guy at the beginning, but Jensen can see that there's kind of a good guy inside of him, and he wants to kind of him to have a second chance in life. And I think that the end of that scene is really quite emotional, because like I said, it's a really cool action scene of him, in the Iron Man armor for the first time. But that moment where kind of Jensen dies, and his last words aren't oh, I'm sorry, or oh, please save me. His last words are, "Don't waste your life, Stark." And it's like, I think it's really quite a powerful moment where he can see that there's some good in Tony, and he really wants him to have a second chance in life to become a better person. And obviously that's him going on to the beginning of his journey of being reborn as Iron Man. So I thought that was a real great scene. And finally, at number 8, I've got the Banished to Earth scene from the first Thor film. Okay. And the reason I decided to put this scene on there, is this scene on your list, or? It
is not.
Well, I picked the Banished to Earth scene from Thor because that was more of a dialogue scene as opposed to just action, and also I think it's one of the best dialogue scenes in the MCU between kind of Chris Hemsworth and Anthony Hopkins. And obviously this is before Thor goes on his journey to becoming kind of the hero he ends up becoming at the end. And I think it's a real great moment because he's all kind of cocky and arrogant and thinks he's doing the right thing, and he just gets put down and put in his place by Odin, who then just strips him of his power and takes the hammer and just casts him out, banishes him to Earth. I think it's quite a powerful kind of a real dramatic moment. Chris Hemsworth's really great, as Thor, and obviously kind of Tom Hiddleston lurking in the background as Loki, and he's the one that's kind of caused this to happen. But I think Anthony Hopkins really steals the show and kind of blows you away in this scene of his delivery of the lines. Because I remember in the trailer, I think his delivery was kind of different, but in the movie, he's like, the horror and desolation of war, and he's like, you can tell he's like really angry, and it's a really kind of powerful moment. And so I thought that was probably one of the best, quite powerful, hard-hitting kind of dialogue moments. And I think, I don't love the first Thor, but I think it's got some real great standout moments.
Right, yeah. I would agree with that, yeah.
And what about you, Sean? What is your 10 through 8 on your list?
Number 10 on my list is the Thomas the Train fight sequence in Ant-Man. Does that happen to be on your list?
No, but it was one of my honorable mentions. Okay. I thought it was really good.
So for me, it's two things really for me why this one really works. Is first off, what I mentioned before about in Doctor Strange of a different kind of finale, where so many comic book movies get to that third act and buildings are being destroyed. There's just an army of nameless bad guys getting mowed down. There's a cloud of trash spinning over a city. There's a sky beam. And then you get Ant-Man, and it's an exciting sequence with that has really interesting, cool visuals to it, and that it's on Thomas the Train, which is my second one. Not just is it a cool, interesting, new way to have a exciting finale, but I've got a 5-year-old who loves Thomas the Train, and so I've got that exact train set 20 feet that way, and so then just seeing this sequence that very much hit at right where I was at in life with Thomas the Train everywhere. It's exciting, it's fun, it's funny, it has all these cutaways and stuff that just are hilarious. It's just interesting. It's clever. It's not just one more big explosions, but it's clever. It's interesting, so I really appreciate it.
It's what I like about Ant-Man and Doctor Strange, is that they're not, they're kind of different from the other kind of, bigger Marvel movies. And like you said, I like that. It's like, it's not some massive, big, epic, the big epic climactic battle is on a toy train set, which I thought was really cool and different. And like I said, really, really funny moments in there as well. What's your number 9?
So my number 9, I went with the Avengers, and essentially it could have been any number of different scenes, but I went with the GALAGA joke, where they're in the Space Center, and Tony Stark goes, "That guy's playing Galaga," and then a minute later it cuts to the guy like on his computer cutting between things. But it really could have been any number of this, just those little quips that were just so good. And this is my stepbrother, well, he killed a bunch of people, he's adopted. I mean, like all those little quips that just kind of all throughout the whole movie. that sense of humor that was like, wow, this is so funny. It's so witty and fun and clever. It just made all these scenes just so enjoyable and made for a movie that from beginning to end, you're laughing, you're exciting, and it's all because of those little things thrown in there that just worked.
Right, it's what was so great about the Avengers. It wasn't just really cool in terms of the action. All the character stuff and the dialogue moments were just as entertaining. You could do top 10 just for the Avengers, couldn't you?
Right. And that's after the movie. I went and saw with a group of guys, and for the next month straight, we would just throw these little lines in and quips quoting the movie because they were all so memorable. So moving up, my number 8. I've got Doctor Strange, the Kaleidoscope street battle. I don't know, like 60, 75% of the way through the movie. Not quite to the Dormammu finale, but before that, where they're all these guys battling and the streets are bending in. And, the comparison from the trailer where people are like, oh, it's like Inception. Well, it's like Inception, except cranked up to a whole bunch of different levels. And just kind of once again where, movies like Ant-Man and Doctor Strange aren't some of my, top favorite Marvel movies, and they don't need to be. They're just uniquely very good at being themselves. And they brought something new and interesting to the table that I'm glad that we have Weird Wizard Bendy World 1, and I'm glad we have a guy that shrinks down and goes down the drain and rides on ants movies. And that's kind of what I've really appreciated about the MCU is that they keep finding new ways to show us something we haven't seen before. It's not just, let's go bigger, let's go funnier. It's let's find something new to show people. And those visuals, whether it was the bendy streets or all the crazy visuals in Doctor Strange, I just thought they were great. And there, for me, one of the things I liked about it is that with special effects, we normally think about trying to make things that look more realistic. So like, wow, look at the Jungle Book. I can't even tell that they're not real animals. Or, wow, Tarkin almost looked real. That's incredible. But what Doctor Strange did is it showed us things that aren't real and made us think that they're real. And that's a really good special effect when you see something that you absolutely know that's not real, that can't happen, and you're like, this looks so cool and realistic. And I thought that was amazing.
Right, yeah, I think the action sequences are all really incredible in Doctor Strange. I almost put this scene where he first enters the multiverse, because it's just so cool and crazy, and they just really go for it. And again, it's, like you say, what Marvel does so well is that as well as doing these big sequels like Captain America, Avengers, every year they'll take a risk and throw kind of like an Ant-Man or a Doctor Strange or Black Panther next year. I love the fact that they kind of do these weird, crazy things, like Guardians, as well as the more mainstream ones as well. So yeah, I think it's just really great. Now going on to 7 till 5, and coming in at my number 7, I've got the elevator fight from Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Is that scene on your list?
It is not on my list.
I say the elevator fight, but I also count the bit kind of straight after where he's escaping from S.H.I.E.L.D. and he takes down the Quinjet. I think it's just Captain America: The Winter Soldier is one of my favourite Marvel movies, and I remember when I first saw it, I was just kind of blown away by how kind of incredible the action sequences were in there. I think I could just do a top 10 just for like action in Winter Soldier. But that elevator fight was a real standout because it was an incredible action sequence, but it was in such a confined space, and just the elevator there, and how he's taking down all those guys,
and you can see what's happening. That's one of the ones for me is that so many, like when you do this close quarters, it's normally like they do cut and close-ups and you can't see what's happening, but with this movie it was shot so well that you could follow what was happening with this cool confined action sequence. So I mean, I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's the thing with the Winter Soldier. It was kind of handheld, but it wasn't really shaky. You could see everything that was happening, like even in the highway battle. You can see everything that's going on. You can see all the punches and the kicks, and I think it was just a real incredible action scene. Even though it was just set in that real tiny confined space, it was just really cool to see him take down all those guys and then take down the Quinjet. How they think they're going to be able to contain Captain America, and he's just like not fazed at all. He's like, before I get started, does anyone want to get out? So I got the elevator fight at number 7, and at number 6 I've got another dialogue scene, and it's Loki discovers his true heritage, where he finds out he's a frost giant in the first Thor. And I don't suppose that's on your list, is it?
It is not.
I got this as my other scene from the first Thor film, and again it's another dialogue scene, and for similar reasons actually, because this one's between Tom Hiddleston and Anthony Hopkins, and again it's another real kind of powerful kind of dramatic moment, and both the actors really sell it, and that's what I like about the first Thor film. Again, I don't think it's one of the best Marvel movies overall, but what Kenneth Branagh did with that film is he made it kind of almost like a Shakespearean family drama that just happened to be set in Asgard. And some of the scenes in Asgard were like the best scenes in the film. It was like I said, it's like a family drama between these kind of Asgardian characters. And that scene was really great when Loki realizes that he's actually a frost giant. A moment when you realize why Loki's so messed up and why he ends up becoming a villain, because he just realizes in that moment that he's kind of like this part of this monstrous race that all the kind of the Asgardians hate, and he finds out he actually is a frost giant. And I think it's real powerful, really emotional, the back and forth between him and Anthony Hopkins, and just the delivery of the lines. I think it's just really great. So yeah, I've got Loki discovers his true heritage from the first Thor, and number 6. And at number 5 I've got We Are Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. Is that in your list?
Interesting enough, it's also in that same spot on my list. So yes, I do have that one, but I have it right here on the list, so we can go for it.
The reason I picked this scene is because, it's in the midst of this massive, big, kind of climactic finale of the action scene there, but it's a real kind of, again, another kind of very emotional moment. And what I liked about the first Guardians is that although it was very funny, and I think it's the funniest Marvel movie, it was also very kind of emotional. It was kind of quite heartfelt and dramatic in parts as well. And that We Are Groot moment was really great, because at that point I realised, wow, this movie's so good, I'm getting emotional over a CGI tree and a raccoon. And that's when I realised how good it was. What do you think about this scene?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. It's, like I said, same spot on my list. And just as I was watching it, I was thinking, I should hate this because this is so cheesy. This should be the corniest thing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But it's not. It's great. It's one of the best things because they've made us care, and they've crafted it in such a way that they can pull something like that off. That we care about the characters, that we care about this not only kind of talking tree, and that it's established, like just even the fact that it's established he can only say one thing, and the fact that he changed it like that, it just works so well, and just even the response afterwards, as just you're seeing Rocket Raccoon afterward holding like a twig, petting a twig, and things like that should not work, but it works because they crafted the movie so well, made us really care, and it's a movie about a bunch of people without a family finding a family, and so a sacrifice like that works.
Yeah, I remember with the first Guardians when it was announced and it was going to be like a tree and a raccoon, and everyone's like, oh, that is going to be rubbish, it's going to be Marvel's first flop, and it ends up being like one of their biggest hits and everyone loves it. So yeah,
I was tracking along with all that. I was like, are you getting like, wow, these people are getting arrogant if they're trying to pull this off, and it's my favorite Marvel movie.
It was just done so well and written so well. You actually kind of care for the characters, you like the characters, it was kind of emotionally investing, and as a result, that final moment really works. Again, like I said, it's unexpected. You're just expecting him to say "I am Groot," and then he says "We are Groot." It's even more kind of it hits you even more so. And yeah, I think it was just a real great moment there. What are your 7 till 6 then in your list?
Okay, so number 7 on my list is Captain America: Civil War, the airport fight scene. Do you have this one on your list?
I do. I have it quite a bit higher, actually.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to my next one. And I totally understand why that wouldn't be there. Number 6 on my list is from Iron Man, the I am Iron Man moment. Do you have this one on your list?
No, I don't have that on my list.
Okay, all right, well, let's talk about it. Once again, just a moment that capsulizes who Tony Stark is, and that plays against what every other superhero movie up to this point in time had done, which is superheroes keep their identity secret. And up till this point in the movie, you think that Tony's going to try and do that, keep it low key, or you're thinking, as they play out into the sequels, finally people find out, like, no, at the first opportunity for this arrogant man to tell the world, yeah, I'm a superhero, yeah, I am, he does, and it's said perfectly, plays out perfectly. It's like the perfect way to end the movie. It's a perfect way to like end this movie that opens up this whole world of things, and it's just like I rewatched this Iron Man about a week and a half ago, and I was wondering, like, does it hold up? I haven't watched it in 2-3 years. How's it? And it's just as good, just as fresh. If anything, I might have liked it more than I remembered liking it, and I like it like top 3-4 favorite Marvel movies. In moments like this are why, just the confidence of it, and it's such a cool moment.
Yeah, it's really quite extraordinary because it was their first film, and yet it's probably one of their best that they've done. But like I said, I completely forgot about that, and I think people overlook that quite a bit, that you know, every other superhero movie, they've got a secret identity, and yet Iron Man, the first thing he does is just reveal that he is Iron Man. You know, I think a lot of people kind of forget about that because it happens in the very first film. But yeah, he doesn't care about secret identities. He's so kind of like egotistical. He's like, yeah, I am Iron Man.
The movie even just building to that scene, the movie's done that. Like, he's press conferences, he plays with the media a lot, he's giving interviews. So it's not just like this random scene at the end where they're like, oh, what if he comes out and like, they've built it into the movie that he does press conferences, that he talks about himself, that he's obsessed with like these types of things. And so even as a scene just by itself fits perfectly into the movie. In everything they've established, I think it's a really special place in movie history, that movie. And Jon Favreau, the director, as a guy that's not underrated at all in one sense, I kind of feel like he's underrated because I put him in kind of this upper echelon that a lot of people I don't think put him in.
And another thing about that scene is that they also established that he just goes against, you know, reading the lines. Like in the first time, he just you know, goes and sits down and tells a story about his dad, and I think that's a real great moment as well. And like I said, at the end of the film, he's got those cards, but he's like, you know, screw this. Yeah. I'm just going to say what I want to say and do what I want to do. And yeah, real great moment there.
Which even in and of itself, that plays out with what he does throughout the rest of the movies, and the sort of impulsiveness and brashness, and like it just establishing his character as well as playing off what we saw before. Just such a moment that is so quintessentially Tony Stark, in that what makes him unique as opposed to other rich guy billionaire superheroes like Batman. This is why he's different.
And also, just going off a little bit of tangent quickly, if you pay attention in Civil War, there's that kind of a callback to the first press conference in the Iron Man film, where he sits down and he's like, I never got to say goodbye to my father. And obviously we see in Civil War what actually happened, where they leave and then they die in the car crash. I just love the fact that even though Iron Man was the very first film, even with Civil War, they're still kind of like referencing it, and we're seeing how it's all connected. It's been the plan ever since the very beginning, and I think it's just real great how they've been able to keep to the continuity of all that. And now going into 4 till 2, I think it is, and at my number 4 I've got Steve versus Tony at the end of Civil War, the final battle there. Is that on your list?
It is not on my list. I wish it was, but it's not.
I picked this because I think it's just one of the best final battles of any Marvel movie. Yeah. It's one of the best because it's not some massive, big kind of saving the world-destroying threat going on. It's the two heroes pitted against one another. And that's what I think was so great about Zemo's plan, is that he wasn't interested in world domination. He wasn't interested in taking over the world or destroying the world. He was interested in kind of turning the heroes against each other and kind of tearing them apart from the inside. And he actually succeeds, you know, and I think it's a real great subversion. You think it's going one way with them fighting the super soldiers, and then suddenly it kind of switches to them being turned against one another, and the final battle is actually them fighting each other. And I'm really glad they decided to do that. It's what I think they should have done in Batman v Superman. You know, it should have actually been them fighting, but then they kind of ended up teaming up against the world-destroying threat again. But with Civil War, it didn't do that. It was about them, kind of their one-to-one fight between Steve and Tony, and obviously Bucky's there as well. And I think it was a real great action sequence because, again, it's really cool with the action, but there's kind of a real emotional, dramatic undercurrent to it with that scene, the moment just before when Tony finds out that, you know, the Winter Soldier killed his parents, and just the look on Tony's face. I think Robert Downey Jr. does a real great job in Civil War, because a lot of it, he's not really Iron Man. He's Iron Man for just 2 action scenes, but he's essentially playing just a real guy in Tony Stark for the whole film. And I think he delivered a real great performance, and in that final battle as well, where they're pitted against one another, you can see where both sides are coming from. And yeah, I thought it was just a real great final battle there. Going
back to what I mentioned before of just comic book movies ending with something interesting that's different, that you care about, this one does that. And a lot of people not criticize the movie, but joked about, oh, it's just Avengers 3. No, it's not. It's not world-ending Avengers come together to stop Big Threat. It's very much the title, Civil War. And so having a finale that's just 2 guys or 3 guys in a warehouse duking it out, that's different. That's interesting. And the stakes to it aren't world ending at all. It's literally a worst case scenario, 3 guys die. That's the worst case that can happen here. But it matters because you care about every single one of these people. You care about each of their motives. You know why they're doing what they're doing. So it's just a wonderfully crafted sequence where there's actual tension leading to people that you care about, that you don't want any of them to win. You don't want any of them to lose. But you understand why they're doing this. And it's some of the shots in it are some of the best action sequences or shots in all the MCU. Like the one that they used in the trailer where Bucky and Captain America just throwing the shield back and forth, taking out Iron Man, I think is one of the best action shots in the MCU.
And I would argue that the stakes are even higher in the scene because it's so personal.
Yeah.
We're really kind of attached to these characters and really care about what's going to happen, and we genuinely think someone could die because the stakes are so high. Iron Man's so kind of personally invested, and like you said, it is very much Steve's story. It's not an Avengers film. He's the main character, or he's the central character. All revolves around him, and all the Avengers are just supporting characters in the film. Going on to my number 3 now, and I've got another final battle, but the final battle from the Winter Soldier, the end of the line moment between Steve and Bucky. Is that scene on your list or not?
It is not.
Okay, and the reason I've chosen this scene, because like the last one, they're both kind of final battles that were really kind of emotionally investing for me. Because I love pretty much all the Marvel movies, but it wasn't to the Winter Soldier that I actually got I genuinely teared up during the final battle. Because again, it's very kind of the stakes are very high because it's so personal between Steve and Bucky, and he can't just take him out and kill him because he's his best friend. He doesn't want to hurt him, he doesn't really want to fight him, but he kind of has to because he's been brainwashed into the Winter Soldier. And I think that moment, the end of the line moment, because obviously it's set up in that flashback when Bucky said it to him back in the 40s, I'm with you to the end of the line. And again, you're not expecting Steve to say that, and I think it's so powerful and so emotional because he's just literally been beaten to a pulp by the Winter Soldier because he doesn't want to hurt Bucky, he doesn't want to hurt his friend, even though he could probably stop him relatively easily, but he doesn't want to hurt Bucky, and he's literally being pummeled. I find it just really kind of hard hitting that he's been pummeled in the face, and then just he's about to essentially be killed by his best friend. Bucky's like, "You're my mission," and he's like, "Then finish it, because I'm with you to the end of the line." And that moment just really hit me, and it just kind of cemented why I think The Winter Soldier is one of the best Marvel movies, and one of the best final battles, because as I said, it was the first final battle of any Marvel movie where I was actually kind of emotionally invested and actually teared up. So what do you think about this scene? Do you think it's a good moment there between Steve and Bucky?
Yeah, I guess I don't like Winter Soldier as much as most people. Not a great movie, just there's other Marvel movies I like more than it. And for whatever reason, some of the stuff just didn't hit me as strong as it hit other people. So this final battle, I wouldn't say it was... I was just kind of like, all right, that was cool. It was kind of my takeaway on it. But that's very cool that when I get a couple up from Al, I'm pretty sure I'm going to bring one up. That for me, I had that exact same response that you had to this scene. So we'll get there in just a second, though.
Yeah, I think it's just because I think I just really love Captain America as a character. And I loved that first movie, even though a lot of people thought it was just okay. And then The Winter Soldier I thought was just even better.
Well, my scene is a Captain America scene, so he'll make a return. I have my teary-eyed Captain America scene.
One last thing, even though it's a big object falling from the sky like a lot of the other movies, like I said, there's that kind of emotional investment in there because it's kind of very personal between these two characters. And also when I was watching it in the cinema, even though I knew Chris Evans was contractually obliged to come back for Age of Ultron, there was even a moment I was like, are they going to kill? Is Captain America going to die here? I genuinely actually thought they were going to kill him off, and he fell into the water. I'm like, oh my god. And I think the fact that it got me to that point where I actually thought, are they going to kill him off? I think it has to be on there for that alone, because even though I knew he was going to come back, it was, it went so far, I actually thought, are they actually going to kill him off here? So, yeah. And my number 2 is the airport battle from Civil War. Okay. And it's kind of cheating a bit, because it's kind of like a 20-minute extended sequence. It's not really a moment, but I had to put it on there, because I think, bar one scene, which I think is hands down the best, I think it's one of the best kind of scenes in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, and one of the best kind of action sequences. And it's hard to pinpoint one moment, because you could do a top 10 just for the airport battle, but that splash panel moment where they all come together, the two teams facing off, and it was, again, I love, for some reason, I love when the Marvel movies have the heroes fighting each other. I love the Iron Man versus Thor fight scene in the Avengers, but I think if I'm going to pick any scene with heroes fighting each other in a big action sequence, it's got to be the airport battle, because I think it was just such a well done sequence. Again, this whole giant 20-minute extended sequence, the whole splash panel fight scene brought to life, seeing all these heroes kind of interacting, them all going up against one another, I just thought it was a real incredible action scene. What do you think about the airport battle?
Yeah, so it was on my list. We pushed it up to when it was on your list, and it very much is like they went, all right, we're putting them all in one movie. Let's make a list of what's a dream come true for people. Like, let's just like list off these things that would be incredible if we could put them in this sequence, and then they're all in there. So, like you said, you can have a top 10 best moments from this fight scene. And I'm sure that was 100% intentional, and just kind of going through it, even that they worked out like that deal with Sony to get Spider-Man, and that it came together for this scene. That's amazing. That, probably my favorite parts of that sequence were the Ant-Man stuff. So in a sequence with all these amazing characters that do amazing things, that have greatest hits type moments in the sequence, Ant-Man might have the best moment. But if you said, no, Ant-Man's not the best moment, and you pointed to something else, I would go, yeah, I mean, that's awesome too, because there's so many just these dream come true type moments in the movie. And really the only reason it was kind of so far down on my list and not in kind of the top section of it is because it, for me, didn't have like emotional resonance. It was just kind of like, this is awesome to see. This is incredible. But it, like, the fact that the emotional dramatic element was just kind of Rhodes getting shot. It could have been, if they been braver with it and had someone else there's a little bit more pivotal, get hurt a little bit more. But beyond that, I mean, it's just an incredible sequence.
Yeah, because you think War Machine is going to die, but he ends up getting paralyzed, doesn't he? Because a lot of people have the argument of, there's no stakes because no one dies. But I don't think someone has to die for there to be stakes. And I think even though, they're not killing each other, I think it's still a real great kind of dramatic fight scene because they don't want to kill each other because they're friends, and I think that's reflected really well when Rhodey gets struck out of the sky. Iron Man flies down to get him, but then Falcon tries to fly down and get him as well because, they're fighting each other, but they don't really want to hurt each other. So I think that's what made it so great. And like you said, there's stuff with Ant-Man, and I love the fact that they brought Ant-Man back in this scene, even though his movie didn't make like $1 billion. But the fact that this movie did, a lot more people will have seen Ant-Man now, and he really stole that entire sequence really with the whole giant man stuff, and it was really great. So what are your 4 through 2?
Okay, so coming to number 4, I've got the Avengers, the final battle, which is all Hulk smash, all that stuff of us finally getting this dream come true of seeing the Hulk in action. You got this one on your list?
I've got a particular moment in the final battle, but I've got it, at my number 1.
Okay.
But, what are your 3 to 2?
So number 3, I've got Guardians of the Galaxy. The moment I picked was specifically they're about to take out Gamora, and then Star-Lord goes like this, and Drax goes, "Why would we point at our throats?" And like I'm watching the movie because in the marketing they didn't put any of this stuff in the trailer. There was none of the Drax humor in the trailer, not a single bit of it. So you're watching the movie and it's been funny and enjoyable, and you think Rocket's gonna be funny and Chris Pratt's gonna be funny, and then just there's a whimsical nature to it, and you get into this scene, you're like 20-25 minutes into it, and Drax says that, I was like, wait, is he going to be doing this the rest of the movie? And it was so funny. I had no clue it was coming. It was one of my favorite surprises comedically, maybe of any movie ever. And just kind of, I at the time this movie came out, I had 4 interns working for me, and so we went to go see this movie right before we went on a trip to the Navajo Nation. We were doing service work and stuff, and it's all during this week in the Navajo Nation. We're just quoting Drax lines to each other randomly. It's just saying all this stuff because it's just so funny and fresh and unexpected, and a new way to be funny that's not just kind of regular quips. It's something totally different.
Yeah, that's what was so great about the humor in Guardians, where you think there's going to be like a cliche moment, and they would just like subvert it then with like a joke or something. And obviously with Drax as well, with taking everything literally. And there's that other moment in the prison scene as well, where he's like, "Don't you ever call me a thesaurus." He's like, "I am not a princess." But yeah. So yeah, I think.
And then they're walking at the end. He goes, "This dumb tree is my friend. This rocket, or this raccoon is my friend. This green whore is my friend. Yeah. As it turns out, when you have interns that are girls, they don't like it when you call them green whores. Something I learned from the movie Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, it's funny with Drax because he's well-meaning. He's trying, he doesn't mean to be kind of nasty, but he's so literal and just saying what's on his mind. He's so honest, like brutally honest. And there's some of that in the second one actually with him and Mantis.
Number 2 on my list, I've got in the first Captain America, the moment where Captain America returns with the prisoners, having saved the day, having his first legitimate, I'm going to be Captain America and save these people because that's what I was meant to do. He returns back and the music starts playing and Tommy Lee Jones is looking on like, oh, okay, I should have been using this guy. For me, I think out of all the MCU movies, that moment is the biggest moment of victory of all the Marvel movies for me, because it's a rescue. It's a guy that's doing something just truly heroic for pure motives. For me, the first hour, like up till that scene in in that movie, the first, all of it, that, might be my favorite hour in a Marvel movie. If the second hour of that movie was as strong as that first hour, it might be my favorite Marvel movie. And it all builds up to this guy that, unlike most superheroes or broken men or on paths of redemption or unwilling, you've got a guy that his character at his core is just heroic. He's just a good guy. And some people think he's overly simple and he's not interesting because of that. That's what makes him interesting, is that he's different. If everyone is just Tony Stark, like I'm a horrible person that needs to redeem myself for putting arms out there, or my parents were killed, therefore I need to avenge them, or like you have a guy that just was raised with good morals and does not like bullies and he does not like evil, and so he's going to, even when he does not have the ability to do anything, wants to do something, and then when he has the ability to do so, uses it. That's very compelling and interesting to me, and this moment where he saves the prisoners is kind of like the peak of a guy, I'm going to do what is right now, and I will die if I have to rescue these people because that is the right thing to do, and I have power and I need to use it for the right purpose.
Yeah, it's like that moment when he just jumps on the grenade without even thinking twice. And again, I agree. Well, that's what makes Captain America so great, because pretty much every hero has got this internal conflict, and what makes Captain America different and what makes him interesting is the fact that he is just kind of the ultimate good guy, and he'll just never be corrupted. And that's what I like about the Winter Soldier scene as well, is that everyone, even if everyone was corrupted and everyone was against him, he would still stand, as a good guy, kind of taking on everyone single-handedly. And it's such a strong strength of character there. And like I said, I actually loved the first Avenger. I haven't got any scenes from it on my list, but that was the one scene that was actually close to being on my list. If I had to pick one scene from it, I would have picked that one.
Yeah, with Captain America, I mean, even just kind of establishing the fact that he's just such a good guy is the reason you can do Civil War. Because the central conflict of the movie is essentially you've got Captain America, who's a very good person, who has a moral compass, who can regulate his own decision-making, who has seen evil governments and people in authoritarian positions do evil things, and so he's very nervous about that. He does not think that's a good idea. And on the flip side, you've got, as we've said repeatedly in this conversation, Tony Stark, who is impulsive, cannot control himself, does stupid things, and needs other people to regulate him. And that's what makes it interesting, is that you have a legitimately good guy and you have a legitimately sleazy bad guy who's on a path of redemption. That's interesting.
That's what's great about Steve, is he's got this strong moral code and he always stand by his decisions. And also what I liked about, how Steve and Tony transition from their first films to Civil War is that they're still standing by what they believe is right and their beliefs, and they've got really strong convictions, but they kind of flip it on its head in that Steve went from just blindly following the government and the military to now going against the military because it's what he believes is right. He believes that they're all corrupt and he needs to stand against them. And then Tony, started off, he doesn't care about the government or anything. So then he's then standing by the government. So they kind of switch sides almost, but yet they're still exactly the same in terms of their character choices and what they believe is right and what they'll, stand by. So I think that was just really great how they did that.
All right, I'll give my number one first because we already talked about mine. Yours is the better place to end on. So my number one on my list was once again in Iron Man in the post-credit sequence, just because as a guy that watched Iron Man thinking, oh, another comic book movie. We got, Daredevil a few years ago. We had some Spider-Man movies. That's all cool. Okay, now Iron Man, interesting. Oh, wow, I really like this movie. Then you get the post-credit sequence, and they've been hinting at S.H.I.E.L.D. the whole movie. They kind of like confirm S.H.I.E.L.D. with Coulson, and then you get the post-credit sequence, and Samuel L. Jackson walks out. And I don't remember if I knew that Samuel L. Jackson was in it or not, but there's a comic book that came out 15 years ago called The Ultimates that was kind of a reboot of the Avengers that in it they shifted Nick Fury from looking like David Hasselhoff
based him on Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson, and it's literally Samuel L. Jackson in the comic book is who he's drawn as. And so you're watching this movie and he walks out and he goes, we're starting the Avengers initiative, and you're like, are they really doing this? Like, have we reached this point in time that this is actually happening? And then the way it's played out, that here we are 9 years later, and how incredible they've actually pulled it. I mean, the MCU is one of the top 5 coolest things ever done in movie history when it comes to just conceptually pulling something off. It's that cool that they've been able to do this at the quality, because I would say they're all good. The worst of them is still watchable entertainment, and then most of them are really good to incredible.
Yes, what's so great about Marvel is that they've been able to kind of do this kind of shared cinematic universe, and since the Avengers, obviously so many big studios and franchises have tried to do the same thing, and they just fail, because what Marvel did that these other studios aren't doing is that they put the time and effort into kind of doing it kind of all these years since that first Iron Man to where we are now. They didn't just sort of rush into it in a couple of years with 2 movies or something.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't have any post-credit scenes on my list, but if I was to put one of them on there, I would put that one, because, like you said, that's the first moment when we realise it's part of this larger universe, and we're going to get the Avengers, and obviously everyone, all the fanboys and the fans of the comics went crazy when that scene happened.
And the thing that I think makes the MCU so incredible is that, by all accounts, I think that DC has better heroes and better villains. Their rogues gallery and their list of heroes are far and ahead for me the Marvel characters. And the ones in particular that Marvel has of Iron Man, Thor, I mean, some of these people, they're not even like the A-listers in my mind. And they've made incredible movies, like they've been like, yeah, we can make great stuff even with not even the A-list ingredients. We're giving A+ cinema.
Okay, so my number one moment on my top 10 best Marvel movie moments is the Avengers Assemble moment from The Avengers. The reason I got this on there is obviously it's the first time we're seeing the Avengers all together, working as a team, and just from that moment where Dr. Banner is like, that's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry, and he just punches the Leviathan there, and that shot, the iconic shot with them all standing in a circle, and then Captain America giving them all the orders. I think that's just one of the most kind of iconic, most memorable moments in the entire MCU, I think, and it's such a great standout moment. We've got the score there by Alan Silvestri.
Underused score.
I think they're going to bring it back there, because I think they're bringing Alan Silvestri back.
It's one of those ones that, like, maybe one of the few mistakes Marvel's made is not bringing back composers. That's a cool score that they haven't used nearly as much as they should. But yeah, that sequence, once again, you could do a top 10 moments in that last 30 minutes. Like, it's literally like 30 minutes long of like, wow, this is so cool. Just the best gigantic battle in a comic book movie. I would give it to this movie hands down, and it's got the awesome action in it. Whether you got the hand-to-hand stuff with Captain America, Hulk finally giving us the Hulk we've always wanted to see, giving us these little quips thrown in there that, like, pulling off lines like Hulk smash that shouldn't work ever but work in the movie. Moments like Hulk smashing Loki or the punching Thor that shouldn't work but do. There's so many things like that in this movie that are in the sequence that are just so good, such a dream come true, and then even giving kind of an emotional payoff finale in the end of it. And to tie this back to my number one pick, just that Avengers Assemble moment is the cap off of the promise of the Nick Fury scene, that they're going to do this, and this sequence is they've done it. They pulled this off.
Yeah, it's kind of cheating saying the whole final battle from the Avengers, because it's like the entire third act of the film. But like I said, the Avengers Assemble moment is just such a great moment, and I think it's probably the best final battle from any Marvel movie, in that it's just, it's the entire third act of the film, and it's just so entertaining, so memorable, got so many great moments in there, and it was just, really cool to see all these heroes come together and, fighting together. That one shot where it's just tracking across the city, seeing them all fighting together side by side, and they all get their own moments to shine. I just thought it was a real credible final battle. So that's my number one on my best Marvel movie moments. That pretty much wraps up the video of our picks for the top 10 best moments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Thanks again, Sean, for joining me in this collaboration. Is there anything else you want to say before we finish up here?
No, thanks for having me on, and it's always fun to talk about Marvel movies because they're so much fun, so they're fun to talk about. But yeah, you can find me on my channel, Sean Chandler Talks About. Like I said, I talk about movies, movie reviews. I'm also on Twitter and the Facebook. Once again, Sean Chandler Talks About. You should be able to find me on there, and I'm love to talk movies.
Thanks again, Sean. And also, you can find me on Twitter at DA_O'Sullivan. What do you guys think? What are some of your favourite scenes of any of the Marvel movies we've had up to this point? Let me know in the comments down below. Massive thanks again to Sean for joining me in this video. Remember guys, if you're not subscribed to Sean already, I don't know, if you're not, where have you been? Have you been under a rock the past year? Go and check out his channel. Sean Chandler Talks About. He's really great. Thanks again guys for watching this video. Let me know your favourite Marvel movie scenes in the comments down below. And as always, if you like this, be sure to click subscribe to see more. But for now, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.